All right, we are golden.
Hey y'all.
Welcome back. Happy New Year. It's been a minute.
Boy, we tell you.
Mhm.
Mm, mm.
Ah,
we both
yeah.
said, we definitely have a turn of events in a different way that we are going to be recording Matters of the Heart Mondays on this good Saturday. That's going to be airing on Monday.
Yep.
Um, Only because, we've got a good foundation, guys. We got, what we talked about: bitterness, unforgiveness in the general. We talked about resentment, anger, all that good stuff. But a lot of the times, like I was telling Shani a little bit prior to us, that we had to do a video for my platform, which is the Whole Story Sundays. Is I feel like when you're talking about healing and it's going to essentially be your ministry in a sense, I feel like God always has to make you bear that cross. So that's kind of, I would say that me and Shani are at different places in our wholeness journey now.
Mhm.
Essentially, I feel like I even had to start over in a way.
Right. And that was something that I was telling Jakil earlier was, sometimes you feel like you have arrived to your wholeness
Oh,
and
I did.
right, and then something else happens and you feel like, man, now I got to like start back over. But really it's like an onion, like you're peeling back the layers. And once you remove one layer, there's another layer there and another layer and another layer. And so as you know, if you've been watching our videos, thank you for sticking with us while we were on this hiatus.
And we gonna get back consistent with y'all. That's we gonna get back real consistent. Bear
Right.
with us though, because we have both had very traumatic experiences,
Right. In the
and
last
we're
couple months.
yeah. So just bear with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk today and really just deal with the matters of the heart, like for real. Like we talked about different topics before, but now we're going to like really talk about our heart issues and different things that we've gone
Mhm.
through in the past couple months, which have really had us to reevaluate, like, what is it, that we need to allow ourselves time to heal from. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Well, I know you guys probably were waiting for more content, but we had to step back and allow ourselves time to like just breathe and deal with what was going on in our own personal lives so that we could come back with you and not um be able to give you something of value to help you and not just be like, woe is me, life is
Mhm.
horrible type stuff. So
Amen. I will add to that by saying she's absolutely right. Um, because the only thing I kind of regret is jumping back into the Whole Story Sunday so soon after the passing of my dad. I feel that I should have gave myself some more time to like process my emotions and my feelings. So just for an update on what's going on with Jaquil and Song, I lost my father on November the 8th, which is my sister's birthday. I got the call on November the 9th. I actually had several calls throughout the night, but I had, I was resting, I was asleep. Um, and basically where my grandma, she gave me a call in the morning. I was actually, my niece was at my house because my sister was out of town in Texas. And what ended up happening was that I knew something was wrong because we have family who we know like what's unnormal for them and what's common and what's not common, but what is not normal for my grandma is to call me at like 7 in the morning because I'm not a morning person really, and she knows that. So we usually talk more towards the afternoon or whatnot. So here's the thing: my dad had a lung condition. that he kind of had, I get mixed stories on. Sometimes I hear that he got it while he was in jail. Sometimes I hear other things. I don't know if they're true at this point in time, though. It was the cause of his passing. And when he passed away, basically that day, my sister was on her way coming back home. And basically at the time, the only people who knew was my immediate family and my siblings and myself, other than my sister. Um, the hurtful part about that, for a lot of people who don't know much about me, is that my father spent a great deal of time locked up. He was in prison for about a good 15 years. So from the time I was 2 to the time I was 17, my dad was locked up. Then when he came home, he lived in Northern Virginia, which for me is about 3 hours away from where I live. I live more on the southern part of Virginia. And so he moved up towards like the DC, Maryland area, and he had a very great successful career as a barber. He actually owned his barbershop. But I literally that day, Chantel, remember we talk about matters of the heart, and I don't know if anybody has ever felt so sick of grief where, God, where literally I had a headache, Chantel, that I felt like if I stood up, Chantel, like I literally felt like I was going to pass out. Chantel, I could not eat. I could not. I was in bed. I literally was in a funk. I could not sleep, Chantel. I literally had been up since 7 o'clock. I went to sleep at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I woke back up at like 9 o'clock. So like that's when in mental health, we call it sleep disturbances. That was my first actual experience with having a sleep disturbance where somebody had to make me eat. I had to take ibuprofen 800 in addition to a muscle relaxer and a melatonin just to, I guess, just to kind of relax, but I could not relax at all. It was just not possible that day, and I know we talk about matters of the heart. I know we always talk about how your mind is interconnected with your body and your soul, but I can honestly say until you have lived like an experience that's so painful, and I've dealt with some hurtful passings, like I've had some very hurtful, traumatic passings in my life, but my dad being a more natural death, it was so many other different feelings associated with his death for me. It wasn't just the fact that I knew he was sick and I knew that eventually it was coming. It was the feeling of it was never enough time. Right. Like I never had enough time with my father. It was also the feeling of this is the last time. You know what I'm saying? In addition to other stuff that we're going to process as time progresses, as we go down, more when we talk about this matter. But for right now, I just kind of want to stay on that part of the physical pain that I felt, all associated to the heart issue. You know what I'm saying? Like my heart was so broken. And I think the sad part about it all is that like I literally, Chantel, I had never felt that way. I never felt so heartbroken. When you hear people say they die of a broken heart, I can see how that can happen because literally I had chest pains all day. Like it was just like the news in itself, and then hearing about it and hearing, like the different reasons and how he passed away. I think all of those things kind of every time re-traumatized me. So then I had my Elijah experience where I went into my room when Elijah went into the cave, and God had to tell him, come out of there. You know what I'm saying? I isolated myself, and because I really didn't understand how this happened and why it happened necessarily. Right. But I can honestly say, Chantel, is as time progresses, this is just the beginning of this video. I just want to tell you how my journey has been, because man, you haven't really even talked about really what's been going on in our life, just how I feel right now. I am a lot better than I was 2 months ago when it happened,
Right.
but some days are definitely better than others. I can honestly say that I am stronger from it, but it has made me a more, it's a different level. It's something that I can really talk about. I never understood what it was like to lose a parent.
Right.
Now, you always talk about parental abandonment. I don't think my dad intentionally meant to abandon me when he was younger. He made choices to take care of us, and essentially it ended him up in jail.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is that as a little girl, I had never really dealt with the feelings of not really having him all the time, not having access to him. Then we grew up, and he lived far, like at least 3 hours away, but our relationship was so tainted from that time that he was in jail, that we had such a rough start, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we had a rough finish, actually. And so then when he leaves, and in my mind I'm thinking like, it's going to be a day where me and my dad are not going to have these issues, where we're going to be able to talk every day, and we're not going to be able to go months without talking, and it's okay with us. And there's that big elephant in the room that we're not addressing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it never happened. And in a sense, you do get mad at God. I got a little mad because I'm like, well, wait a minute, like, that's it, like, he gone. You know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
and then the reality of the situation is, there was never no conversation to address the elephants in the room. So not
Right.
only are you grieving your parental father from childhood, but now you're grieving the fact that you'll never have that. And
Right.
anything associated with that is none.
I and I already did said this before, but again, I send my condolences to you
Yes,
and
ma'am.
your family, and especially your siblings, because it's difficult. I have never lost any biological parent, but when I was 12, my godmother, who was essential in raising me, she passed away, and it devastated my entire world because that's the
Yeah,
person I really looked to as my mom.
that's
Uh,
your caregiver. Yeah.
and then I didn't get to say goodbye because
Yeah.
all I knew was like she was in the hospital and they wouldn't let me go see her because I was a kid and they didn't want me to, see her like this. So I never got to say goodbye. So I was angry, and I was angry at God, like, why did this happen? Why would you take her away from me? All of these emotions. And it's a really hard thing to process. Um, and so a lot of times, and I'll get into my thing in a moment, but a lot of times what happens is because we've never been taught how to process your grief, we end up stuffing the stuff, and then
Exactly.
we self-medicate in whatever way you choose to self-medicate, whether it's alcohol, whether it's shopping, whether it's whatever it is that you do to help you to feel like you're coping with the thing because you're not ready to deal with the hurt. That's what we do. And for years, that's what I did for a lot of my grief, until I started doing self-help and therapy and stuff to get through the stuff. So over the last couple months for me, uh it's actually been really twofold. I went through the process of filing for divorce, which is now finalized. And so that was a grief area for me, which essentially felt like a death. And if you want to hear more about that, you got to go to the Whole Story Sundays, because we just did a video about that.
We just did a whole
Part
video.
two.
We got to have a part two because we didn't even get to cover everything.
Right. But so I was going through the grief of that. And then my grandmother just passed
Wow.
January 11th, which was my daughter's first birthday. So while, essentially I'm like celebrating my daughter, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be, and I had did all this planning to make sure her first birthday was amazing. And one of the things that my grandmother would always do is she would always call us for our birthdays, or if we were together,
Mhm.
she'd be there, and she would always sing her special birthday song to us. And this is the part that gets me a little emotional, but I think I'm going to be good talking about it. But that day, that morning, I was talking to my daughter. She's one, so she wasn't really, I don't know how much she was actually listening to me, but I wanted to do something special, start a tradition for her that could go on for the rest of her life. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna sing you Gigi's birthday song that she sings to everybody, for your birthday. And as I sung it to her, I didn't know that my grandmother was never going to call that day to sing the song to her herself. I didn't know that at that time, she was, had gone into cardiac arrest, that
Mm,
she, you know, was going to the hospital or being transported. I didn't know all of that stuff. And so for me, my grief in that area has been a little different. I've
mm,
cried, and we still haven't had her funeral yet because due to all the COVID requirements and stuff, everything
mm.
has been so booked. We had to push it out trying to even get the funeral. So in about 2 weeks, we'll actually finally be able to bury her, which would be like a month since she passed. And that's traumatic in itself because we can't really close that wound until we officially have the
Till you
funeral.
get to the next phase of it, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm kind of in this space where I'm okay,
Mm,
but I don't know how it'll be when I see her in that
mhm,
coffin, and that'll be like a whole nother thing. But I think that I'm going to be okay, and this is why, because um, my grandmother was one of the bravest people I've ever met. And she
mm,
was extremely confident. She knew what she wanted in life. And she had been talking to me about preparing for her funeral for like 15 years. And she had said, well, this is what I want. This is make sure this happens, make sure that happens. She wanted a certain poem read that she had told me about. She wanted to
mm,
make sure everybody had, all the girls had butterfly bracelets and all these different things that we have been talking about for years. So I think I was talking to my brother or my mom, and I was saying, when my grandfather passed about 6 years ago, it was different because when my grandfather passed, he he had been sick my entire life, off and on, cancer, stroke, diabetes, all kinds of different things, but he always bounced back and
mm.
always came back. And me and my grandmother would joke like, he's never going to die because he's so stubborn. He just won't let it
He
happen.
won't,
So
he won't, he won't let it happen. Yep.
right.
Mhm.
So when they called me and said he was gone, I just went in like complete shock. Like, no, he's not. No, like, and my mom even said this time, she said, we are not going to the funeral home and going to try to resurrect her like you try to do with your grandpa. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Because literally, like, they were like, Shawnee, you have to come back. We have to have the funeral. And I was like, I'm not coming back because he's not dead, because my grandfather is never going to die because he's stubborn. And for me, it was really when I pulled back the layers of it, it was because I never expected him to ever die. So I never said goodbye. When they called and told me he was in the hospital, and it was like, here's the number. And I was like, I'll just talk to him when he gets home. And
Mhm.
it haunted me because I never called him to see how he was doing or
Yeah, I'll
anything.
talk about that.
I just assumed, I'd have another chance to talk to him, and I didn't. And it was very hard for me to accept that I couldn't say goodbye. I couldn't close that door. But so it was different with my grandmother because um, we didn't we didn't know she was sick.
Mhm,
So that part caught us all off shock. She has different symptoms of stuff, but the doctors never really diagnosed it correctly. Um,
mhm.
but when she did pass, the doctors was like, "Oh, her kidneys have failed. She should have been on dialysis 2 years ago." Like what? Like how nobody catch this? This is crazy to us. But
Right.
the last time I saw her was on Christmas, and one of the last things that she said to me before I left, she said, "You remember the poem I want you to read for my funeral?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Okay, make sure you do that and make sure all the girls have like butterfly bracelets and stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, grandma, I love you. I'll see you in a couple weeks," because I was coming back to see her and everything. And she didn't really say anything after that, but she was still her sweet self and stuff. And then she got sick really fast, and it was just like it just happened. But I remember when I was driving away and I was telling my kids, I said, we come out here so often because thanks to the quarantine and everything shut in, and my grandmother living 3 hours away from me and being able to telework is, even though a lot of bad stuff happened in 2020, that helped me to be able to spend more time with her in the last year, because I could work from anywhere. So I could come to where she was and work from there and spend time with her. So I got to spend a lot of time with her before she passed, not knowing it would be the last time that I would really get to spend with her.
Girl.
But so it gave me a sense of peace. And I told my boys, I said, we come up here often because Gigi's getting older. We don't know how much longer she has, and this could be the last time we saw her or see her, not knowing it would actually be the last time we would see her. Um, so when she passed, that same headache and stuff that you talked about, and the sleep, what is it called, sleep disturbia or something?
Disturbance, yeah.
Yeah, I had all that, even though like I still was like, I'm happy that she's at peace now. Um, but like cried till I had a headache,
Girl,
couldn't sleep well and
you
stuff.
couldn't eat at all. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
my brother had to, he was making sure that he was making food, making sure that I would eat. Um, while I'm telling everybody else, because I'm still trying to take care of everybody else. I was like, make sure you're eating food, make sure you get some rest, make sure you do this. And I wasn't doing it for myself because I'm like, I just, like it just caught me completely off guard, but yet it didn't, because it was like our last conversation she knew would be the last time that we would see each other.
Which was the mm,
So,
girl. It's it's a sucky feeling because you know the way that you felt about your grandfather, that's kind of how I feel about my dad, where I guess essentially I didn't expect him to pass. I
mhm,
knew he was sick, but he was so resilient in a sense that I had never expected it. So I think I need to say this because I think it's another layer of my healing that'll take place when I come to a form of acceptance. One part of this situation that I have not been able to accept was that me and my dad, Shani, often would have what I like to call the best occasions, because growing up, I was always very used to seeing my dad on occasion. When I would go and visit him when he was locked up, for the holidays, for an special event like my graduation, stuff like that.
mhm,
And um, mm, so basically, I kind of got into the swing of one thing I wish I would have done more was I wish I would have reached out more
mhm,
during those times that we didn't see each other. The last time I saw my dad was in July, and he came down and he was like, I want to do lunch with you. And I told him that was completely fine. So we met at he always let me pick the restaurant. So we met at Texas Roadhouse. And he blessed me with like a financial blessing also that I wasn't even really expecting either. And we just had this very, very long conversation at the table where he basically was just like, I I want you to know that you're the queen. He would always say, you're the prize, you're the queen, you're the prize, you're the queen. And he would just like pour like so much into me. Um, I never really thought that, looking back, that the last time I would have saw him was in July, because keeping in mind that I had a graduation coming up and I
mhm,
was moving into my own place and it was Christmas time. Before he passed, it was Thanksgiving as well. So I'm thinking like I'm gonna see him for Thanksgiving, I'm gonna see him for Christmas, plus I graduate, plus I move into my own place. So we're gonna like spend so much time with each other, not realizing that that was gonna be the last occasion.
mhm,
And that was the one that at the time I deemed the least significant, because it was just a random him coming down, us talking and getting like, catching back up. And I hold on to that memory because that was the last time I was able to physically see him and say goodbye. You know what I'm saying? And it bothers me that I didn't get to formally say goodbye when he was passing. Another thing is that he didn't want anybody to know like how sick he really was. One thing I can say though, when it related to the whole story Sundays, he would never comment, he would never say anything, but he would always like the videos and he would always look at the videos. And that's the type of stuff that sometimes like I miss seeing. I
Mm-hmm.
would never see him, comment or say much, but I would always see him looking at the video. You know what I'm saying? And that would make me happy and that would make my heart proud because when I told him that I was going to do it, he was in full support. Another thing I think about was as it related to me just sharing like my ideas with him. Like I would just bounce ideas off of my dad and he would just always be like all ears and he would support everything that I had to say and that I thought that I wanted to do. I think sometimes he was supportive to a fault, and that's kind of the thing that I get when I went up there for his memorial service. Everybody was just like, he was the father that they never had. And that kind of brought some peace to me because I feel like a part of his reasons for not being as much available for us was because of that guilt of so much time that he spent locked up in the prison in the penal system. But when he came out, he blessed so many young men by letting them stay at his barber shop because they didn't have anywhere to stay because they were just coming home from prison themselves,
Mm-hmm.
letting them just sweep the shop or learn how to cut hair. And then he would be like their apprentice and he would help them by giving them money so that they'll be able to get on their feet, giving them clothes. He cut all the leadership at his hair church for free, at his church for free hair. He never charged his pastor or the deacons or any of them for getting a haircut because he felt that was his way of giving back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about those things, and sometimes I think about myself. Like a lot of the times, me and my dad will talk about spirituality, and they say a lot of the people said, well, your dad was a powerful man of God. And then I wonder, like, did he pass that down? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm very spiritual. And I feel like a lot of times gifts pass down. But who's to say my dad wasn't ministering to those barbers when he was in the salon?
Right.
And looking back, a lot of the things that I was angry about about with my as it related to my father, a lot of that anger has went away because I think about all of the stuff he had to endure in his own personal life that would have prohibited him from really being fully the father that he wanted to be. I look back and I think that he wanted to be a dad, but I just don't think that I ever fully allowed him to. And that's kind of some of the guilt too.
Yeah.
It's like wishing that I would have gave him more time, like met him where he was versus expecting him to kind of meet me where I was.
Right.
So
And
this
that's
is therapeutic. Yeah.
that that is definitely it's a hard place to be dealing with that shame and that guilt because um one of the things that I've shared with people on what helped me to have better relationship with my parents was realizing that they did the best that they could with the knowledge that they have, and we have to realize that we live, not even just parenting, but live as everyday human beings out of what has been poured into us.
Talk about that. Yes.
We can
Girl.
only be as good as what's on the inside of us until we go through our own healing process. And it's difficult, especially as the child, to be like, but they weren't here for me, and why do I have to forgive them and stuff? But we never know when that time could come where they won't be here anymore. And we don't, and once they're gone, most times, I can't say for everybody, but once they're gone, we don't remember, or we don't dwell anymore on all the stuff they didn't do right. We miss their presence and we just wish we had one more time to spend with them versus
Yeah,
they didn't do.
correct. And is a I have a book, like it's a guided journal book where they ask you to write a letter to somebody who you miss or someone who you love. And I haven't been able to tackle that because I often say, like, I feel like I haven't been able to say everything that I fully wanted to say to my dad. But then I think about it, maybe I did though. Maybe what needed to be said was said, and the way things happened was the way that it needed to happen. Um, at this point, Chantel, the only thing I can say, and I think we can both agree, is as it relates to dealing with the depth of a person, is a lot of the times, which essentially is, it kind of goes back to that matter of the heart thing, right? And I can honestly say this to people now, I can really say it. It's going to come a point in time where you're not going to have access to that person. And is the feelings of resentment, anger, unforgiveness, bitterness, is it worth that? Or is it worth meeting that person where they are and allowing God to mend that relationship where it is? And
Right.
believing that, like, don't believe that if you can go months without talking to a person, that is not something in you that still kind of resent that person. Like,
Right.
don't be so fooled into thinking that I can go months without talking to my dad. I'm fine. That's just the nature of our relationship. No, that's the way your relationship has come, because the reason why is because of so much things that has happened prior to you getting to the place where you are now. You know what I'm saying? So I would say, if you have a parent that you are at odds with, or y'all have kind of, y'all okay, like y'all are on good terms, that's what me and my dad were. We were on good terms,
Mm-hmm.
but we could have been on better terms because we could have talked to each other more. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I would say, me, I know this sounds bad because I know a lot of people will say, well, I'm the kid. You are the kid. But deep
Right.
down inside, you have a father who was a kid also, who 9 times out of 10 is dealing with his own parental abandonment, dealing with his own parental hurt, his own rejection, his own trauma. And he's not able to give to you what he don't have for himself.
Right. He still
So
needs that healing, or she still needs that healing if it's your mother. And I
yes,
totally get where people come from saying, I'm the kid. But at some point, that only works when you're literally
are the kid.
right. You are a kid. Once you hit 18, like you are now in control of what you choose to accept or reject in your life. And as much as it, and I'm not saying that if your parent is still like right now a toxic person, that you should have a relationship with them. But I'm also not saying that you should just write people off and be like, I'm just not going to deal with them, or I'm only going to deal with them to a certain extent because of what they did in the past. Like,
You still
let the
love them.
past be the past and let it go, because we never know when that person is going to be gone. And then all
Yeah,
we will have left is, I wish I would have did something differently. I wish I
that's
could,
what I'm saying.
know, just
Yeah,
let go and spend time with them, because is it really worth, you know, I don't want to live with regrets. And
yeah.
that's what I've had to accept, my parents aren't perfect.
Mhm.
Nobody's parents are perfect. They do the best that they can with the knowledge and experience that they have. And everybody has gone through some kind of trauma in their life that affects the way that they parent. It's most times not intentional what they do.
I
Um,
would say it's not. I think sometimes they just get so far gone and so deep in that they don't know how to fully rectify the issue. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
going to go back to what you said about your dad ministering to other people. And my brother made this statement about my grandmother the other day, and it was so profound, simple
Uh-huh.
but profound. He was saying, how everybody used to go around with the little wristbands to say, what would Jesus do? But you can't really see Jesus here, but you can see people's lifestyles and how they replicate him. And everybody, just like with your dad, like we've gotten so much of an outpour from people from my grandmother passing. It devastated them because that was like their mother. It was like their
Yeah.
grandmother. Like she took everybody in. And so we
Hmm.
may not be able to say what would Jesus do in this situation, but we can say what would Shirley do in this
What would
situation.
Shirley do?
Love
Yeah.
people? Would she forgive people? Would she open up her home? Would she cook for them? Would she, all of these things that we can
Mhm.
do. And I think that's the best thing that we can hold on to. Like, how can I continue to keep this person alive? For me, is by continuing to do the things that they did that brought joy to other people, that helped other people.
Amen.
Even though you're going to go through grief, because we all, bless you,
Thank you.
we all go through grief, and it's not okay for people to tell us how to grieve.
And how long?
Right, and how long it's going to take, because it's like waves of emotions. It's something
Yes, it
I talk
is.
to with my therapist, even in going through, divorce and stuff. You're going to have waves of grief with that.
Highs and lows, you know?
Exactly. And nobody can tell you how long it's going to go on. It just goes until you get to that place where, you've come to accept it. And even then, still, it can still be hard years and years. Like, they say time heals. I don't know if time necessarily heals, but time changes, the way
Your
that,
feelings.
yeah, your feelings about the stuff. And so it's it's essential that you do deal with it, though. I
Yeah,
think that's the part that we're trying to help you to understand. Like, you can't bury the grief. You have to deal with it, because if you bury it, it will kill you. You mentioned about the broken heart syndrome, and it's really actually a thing. If you look it up,
it
that's
is.
why a lot of spouses die shortly after their spouse dies, because it literally breaks their heart, and they die.
Because grief, especially if you have a level of guilt associated with it, like I think, you know, that level of guilt and being ashamed of yourself for not doing more, like giving that person their roses while they were here,
Mm,
kind of has the ability to kind of, you don't want to think about it. It's easy to avoid that. So
right.
that's the reason why when we said this, I said, I got to confess this because that's me dealing with it. That's me acknowledging that it happened so that I can move past it and I
Hmm.
can like really continue. You get what I'm trying to say though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I would say this though, and I do want to say this because we're talking about matters of the heart. I am not a person who gets anxious, but I have had one anxiety attack before in the past due to holding on to so much.
Hmm.
Um, but here lately, like probably about 2 weeks ago, I did experience anxiety in addition to depression due to going weeks without crying about my dad,
Hmm.
going weeks without writing in my journal, going weeks without spending time with God, haven't been to therapy in a while. You see what I'm saying? Been in
Right.
the church, but kind of just been going through the motions. And I think that's the reason why today was so important because, yeah, I cried my little eyes out, I bawled my heart out, but I had to put it somewhere.
Right.
I gotta put it somewhere. I can't put it in. It has to go out. Then now it's no longer my burden. Now Chantel know what to pray about. Now I know what to pray about for Chantel. And that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, it happened. Yes, we hate the fact that the person is gone. Yes, we hate the fact that we didn't do everything right. But you got to place that hurt somewhere because if
Right.
not, it becomes a heart issue. It becomes self hatred towards yourself. It becomes you rejecting yourself. It becomes anxiety attacks and depression and sleepless nights because you're not dealing with the grief and the other feelings associated with grief.
Right. Crying is therapeutic. It
It
really
was very therapeutic, and I don't feel bad for doing it either
don't,
because
and don't ever feel bad for doing it. Listen,
it's
I
a raw platform, Shani. I feel like in the event that we're talking about healing and these people are not seeing us go through our own journey, our own healing process, then what makes us qualified to talk about it?
exactly. It's very difficult to take advice from somebody who's never been through anything. Like, I made it a very um, a very big point for me when I decided to start open up making videos, writing, talking to people, that I would be transparent about my life, because one of the things that kept me from the church for a really long time was I felt like they were hypocrites. I felt like, they tell you to live one way, but they weren't really being honest that they were even living that way. They never, and that's why I love the pastor that I have now, because he's really transparent about the struggles that he's had in his life and how God helped him overcome that. I felt like I needed that. I feel like this generation needs that vulnerability of people who are going to be like, yeah, we've gone through this. This is how we overcame it, and give people hope that they can overcome these things too. Because there's a stigma that as long as I got King Jesus, I don't need nobody else and everything is going to be okay. But listen, let me tell you something.
And
I have
Jesus and
Jesus and I also
resourcing.
got a therapist. You need to have, you need both. You also need a support group. You need to
I
have people
do all
around
of
you
it.
that will call you on your stuff and be like, hey, you're not acting like yourself. What's going on? Let's talk
What's going
about it.
on?
let's
Mm,
let's go have some coffee or some tea, or like go take a walk in the park. you need
on.
you need a community of people around you to help you to get through stuff, because if you're trying to do it by yourself, you're failing.
You lacking now. Where are you in your wholeness journey right now?
For me,
Mm,
like I said, it's been a it's been an eye opener. This whole month of January has been really
mm,
revelational for me. There was a point where I felt like, I've come to a place of wholeness and I'm good. And, but then 2020 really rocked me to the core and really showed me that there was some other stuff that I still needed to heal from. And though I may be at a level high enough to be able to help other people, I still have other things to work on. And I think sometimes, as one of my coaches, she reminded me that you you can still impact and influence people while still dealing with your own stuff. And for me, that was a very hard thing. I felt like, I can't help people if I got junk that I have not processed through. And then really hearing her with that, it helped me to realize I can still deal with my stuff and then help people in the areas that I've healed from. So it's
mm.
always a progressing thing. Like, I don't feel like we'll ever fully be whole. I feel like you're always going to, again, going back to that onion, there's always going to be another layer to pull back. So as I mentioned, when we were doing the overcoming divorce, I felt like I was whole after my first divorce. I had come to a place of really relying on God and stuff, and then got married again, thinking that I was doing the will of God because we were in church. and only to come to a place of realizing I still had codependency issues, which I never knew I had before.
And you didn't even know you had it at all.
Right. I never even knew it was a thing until, it reared its head in the marriage. And so that's an area that now I'm working on healing through, to actually acknowledging this stuff. So in my wholeness journey right now, I have come to a place where I'm acknowledging the
Mm,
areas that still need healing, and I'm allowing God to I've slowed down to allow God to heal me in those areas and work with him in healing with that.
amen.
Not just throwing it all, because sometimes I think we go like either we're on one side or we're on the other side. So either we're like, I'm gonna just throw it on God and let God deal with it. If God can't fix it, nobody can. And then, or we're completely on the other side, like, I'm gonna do this whole thing by myself. And there has to be
Myself.
like balance. Like, Lord, I know that you can do what I can't do, but I know you still require me to do my part. So in my part, I have to be vulnerable enough to say, God, I need healing in this area. Still help me, give me the wisdom on what I need to do. Do I need to see a counselor to walk through the steps of this stuff? Do I need to, journal to get through this stuff? Do I need to spend more time with you in worship and fellowship and praying? Do I need to go on a fast? Like, what is it that I need to do? Don't automatically assume that what somebody else's fix is going to be the same thing for you, because what may work for me may not work for you.
Work for me. Yep. Amen. And I love that because I love that for the fact that what you said about the being an inspiration while going through your own deficit,
Mm-hmm.
because the reality of the situation is, like I said, when I was having those heart pains and that headache and all of that stuff, I was like, how am I about to sit up here and talk to these people? But
About being
now look at,
whole.
and it's the whole story Sundays, and it's Matters of the Heart Mondays, and Inspiring Beauty and Believers. And we literally go so hard for these platforms, but I ain't gonna we ain't gonna talk about it online. I'm gonna tell you off record, I got an idea for a video. But
Okay.
basically something that I want to tell you though is that I realize now that Paul was going through stuff while helping people.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was going through stuff. Can you imagine knowing that you're going to die, but still pouring out, healing people, touching people, making them whole? You see what I'm saying? And then
Right.
it takes me back to that scripture of the meek shall inherit the earth, because God wants us to be humble, to say, I'm still going to do your purpose no matter how I feel right now, no matter if I'm not feeling it right now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not going to lie. It's been a lot of days that I've recorded the whole story Sundays after the passing of my dad that I could have not. I could have felt like not doing it. Little
Mm-hmm.
transparency moment. Chantel had to help me get my life all the way together because I could not find the videos that I recorded. I had recorded 2 amazing and bomb episodes, one with Chantel, one with my brother. They're both on the West Coast, so that's the reason why I had to record it virtually. And I couldn't find it. And the week before that, my video just cut off. Like, we was in the middle of a juicy conversation, cut off. The week prior to that, I was having connection issues, and I was like, forget this. Like, literally, by the time I had got to Chantel, I'm like, forget it. I'm done. I'm over it. So
He
what
was about
keeps
to quit the whole story.
the whole story? I was about to say, forget it, but I am going to say what is going to keep me going is realizing that my father never quit. I mean, the last day that when he passed away, he went to work for 12 hours that day.
Wow.
When I think about stuff like that, because he said he got to help people, he got to do what he passionate for. Somebody else gonna need him to be there so that he can pay them. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And when I think about that, it makes me realize the whole story Sundays, whether they hear 30 minutes of it or an hour of it, they heard something that they needed to hear. And I'm gonna keep on proceeding. So
Right.
I love that. So we can still inspire people even if we're hurt, even if we're grieving, even if we're sad. Because the good news is that, yeah, now we got more stuff to bring to you guys because we on a whole nother different place in our life. We got more substance.
Right, exactly. And I think that's really what people need. Like, we could talk about this, specific topics of resentment and unforgiveness and all those things, but when you really get to the heart of the matter, you know, 2020 was really rough for a lot of people. A lot of stuff happened in the world. Um, and a lot of people don't know how to process all of that went on. Um, and again, it goes back to them. They start self-medicating or doing whatever they need to cope with and stuff those emotions, which is unhealthy. And so I I know, and like you said with your dad, the thing that has helped me to continue to push forward after my grandmother passed um, was remembering that she was like one of my biggest supporters, one of my
She wouldn't
biggest
quit.
cheerleaders. And she was always like, don't stop writing, don't stop, speaking and stuff. And she would, every time I did a video, she was on there. If I was live, she was on there
Yeah.
watching, commenting and stuff. And, it, so even, I think it was 2 days after she had passed, I was supposed to be speaking on a podcast, and my mind was like a complete fog, and everything in me really wanted to be like, "Yeah, I ain't about to do this," and use the excuse, which was a valid excuse. My grandma just died, and I just can't. I'm not in emotional place mental capacity to do this. Um, but I remembered her. Heard her voice, and I was like, I gotta take this one because she would never let me quit. She never quit. She was always, there to help people. And, I got on when I first started talking, I was like, this is going downhill really quickly. But something just like ignited
Yeah,
in me. And it was just like, I just started like, it was like the second wind. It just took over and it was like, I needed to be here. I needed to do this because what I do is still important. And she would
mhm.
never let me give up. She would never tell me, oh, well, just don't do it because, you're going through
You're
pain.
having a rough day. You
Right.
know what, though, Shawnee, what you just said was so profound as it related to hearing a voice, because that's a real thing.
Mm,
After I lost my dad, I can honestly say you know what affirmation I say to myself all the time now?
mm.
You're the queen. I keep hearing you're the queen, you're the prize. You're the queen, you're the prize.
You are, yes.
But when you say you heard your grandma's voice,
Hmm.
that like a way that we can make this a positive thing is we can always keep those affirmations with us.
Exactly.
But how do you feel about leaving some type of legacy for them as it relates to what they represented as a people, like to keep their legacy going? It sounds like you said your grandma was a giving I think that's what
Mhm.
our
Yes.
people had in common, is
Yes.
that they were both very giving, they were both very nurturing and loving. And I feel like you got to let your loved one memory live on in a good way. So
Right.
how do you want to remember them? And I think that's something we should both consider going forward. What foundations, what programs, what scholarships can we create in love and memory of Miss Shirley and Jameson? What can we do? You know what I'm saying?
I definitely agree with you on that wholeheartedly. And it's funny that you actually said something earlier that totally was one of my grandmother's quotes. She was like, "Give me my roses while I'm still alive."
Yep.
And that was something that we've told everybody, who wants to send something, like, please don't send us flowers, because she always said that quote, "Give me my stuff while I'm alive so I can smell it." She was so phenomenal, like in this part. She was so phenomenal. Like every person that I've talked to was like, this is unheard of, really, in the Black community. She had her whole funeral, everything already paid for.
Thank you.
She had all her debts, everything was taken care of because she never wanted to be a
Be
burden
a
to
burden.
anybody. And she didn't
Mm.
want her family having to figure out how to bury her and stuff. So she took care of everything. But the thing that she did, she was like, I ain't paying for no flowers because I can't smell them anyway. So if y'all want flowers, y'all put them, but I don't want them. So we told her, don't send any flowers because that's not what she wanted. We gave her flowers while she was here. We always, made sure. And if you don't understand what that means, it's not literally just giving them flowers. Like we did give her flowers too, but we always showed how much we honored and appreciated her while she was here.
While she was here, yep.
For her 70th birthday, we put together a whole magazine about her life and stuff, and had people write letters and stuff to tell her how much she was appreciated and loved, and what she had meant to them, so she could know. And we told her over and over again how much she meant to this family, and to everybody she came in contact with. Even strangers, she would like hug strangers in the store. They'd be crying and stuff. And so one of the biggest things for her, she always talked about how important family was. I even have this video where she was talking about how much family matters and stuff. And so um my brother has his own business that he has started, incorporated business, and it's called Living Legacy, and it's just continuing to carry on the legacy. But the thing that we want to carry on for her legacy and for my grandfather's legacy and Stanford family as a whole is that, you know, building up taking care of people. She always wanted to take care of people. And so our whole goal and desire is to take care of other people, bringing people in as if they are our family, even if they're not, because that's what she always did. So
Mhm.
whatever organizations we start under that, it's the whole thing is going to be about how we can take care of other people, how
Other
we
people.
can show people that they're loved. And that's that what would Shirley do? Shirley would make sure these people have food. Shirley would make sure these people have clothing. Shirley would give her last to take care of somebody else, even if it
Mhm.
meant that she was going to sacrifice. Now, obviously, we're not trying to go broke, but we want to build up, you know, build that wealth within our family in order to be able
Mhm.
to give an abundance to other people and other organizations and stuff to make sure that continues on. Like,
Mhm.
and that there's so many different things, and I don't want to go into all the different specific, like,
Mhm.
I want to start a school, I want to do this, I want to do that, like all of these different things. Um,
Amen.
but it all ties back into making people feel good about themselves, making
About
people feel
themselves.
loved.
Yep. That's so true. I think for me personally, it would be, being that my dad he spent a good amount of time in the penal system, but we all know that the healthcare is
Mhm.
not good there. I don't even know if they have insurance in jail. They probably don't. But the
Right.
thing about jail is that they made billions of dollars off of inmates who, granted, people do heinous things. People rape people, kill people. I do believe that. But I also know my dad, he sold drugs. I know that's not good. I know that's not good at all. But I know that God is a God of grace and that He's the ultimate judge. And I think that even while these people are locked up, He still wants someone to care about them. Like right now, they have this big thing going on in jail where they're literally passing from COVID and they don't have any like any support. So
Mhm.
imagine living next to your roommate and your bunkmate has COVID and you right by him.
Mhm.
And you might have underlying health conditions yourself, but the problem is that you're in jail, you're in prison. So
And
it's
nobody
not
cares.
yes. Or what about the people who were wrongfully convicted? The people we know that happen in the Black community all the time where, people get in prison for something that they did not do at
Right.
all. And they serving life sentences for a crime they didn't commit. And I often think like, just because I'm wearing orange doesn't necessarily mean I'm a bad person. I
Right.
did something that was bad, but I'm not, it's a spirit behind everything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I guess for me personally, I know this is going to come with some slack. Maybe everybody, I get like it's some people. Well, who am I to say everybody? Because honestly, I'm not God. We're not the great judge.
Mm.
I would love to do like come up with policies and just things that can help to protect them
Right.
while they're locked up. Whether it's them just having basic life needs, like the food that they get in jail is ridiculous, the insurance that they get, the care that they get. I think that they should have insurance. They
Right.
should have good doctors coming to support them. They should have people coming doing things like they doing for outside in jail as well for COVID measures. I'm concerned they don't have windows, and I get that some people can break out, but I think about the breathing conditions. Now, if my dad really did develop a lung condition while he was locked up, there's no windows. So
Right.
recycling air. So I think about that. Now, do I think they need windows so that they can escape? Negative. So I know everything needs to be taken accounted for, but I
Right.
think there should be some type of foundation that if this is a $1 billion business, what how are y'all putting that back into the penal system?
There was a documentary on Netflix that I watched, and I think, let me see. I want to see if I get the name. Oh, okay. It's called 13th. It's a documentary on Netflix. Actually came out in 2016, but the first time I ever heard about it was last year.
Right.
But
Yeah. So, it would be good for us to do that so that, we can come together on that. And
mm,
I do feel a lot better 100% better after this conversation. Just want to let you know, I think this is going to bless some people.
I do too. But so that documentary, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend that you watch, because it talks about the penal system and how it's really a new form of slavery, and how these people are mistreated in prisons and stuff. And so
Correct.
I definitely think there's a lot of things that need to be done in that area. And it's up to us as a whole, as people, to make these changes that need to be made in order to, we can sit back all day and talk about what's wrong with the world, but then we just become part of the problem.
That's a problem. Yep.
Ironically, I sat back when I said that, but
Right. But it's cool. I get what you're saying. But I do think that that's the reason why God put it in us to do things for the people. You know, like you said, now that if you didn't give your people their roses while they was here, leave, help to advance their legacy somehow. Because that's what I think essentially it is all about. So Shiny,
it's time to go, Kiki.
I want to know this. When are we going to do this again? Are we on the schedule with Matters of the Heart, or are we going to just kind of...
Listen, we didn't even put together a schedule. I just felt like, we needed to put this out there, especially, like I said, people dealing with grief, because, like I said, with my grandmother, she's being buried in California, but there have been such a high number of deaths with COVID in there. We literally had to prove to them that she was negative in order to make sure they didn't put her body with COVID bodies and stuff, and to try to get her buried earlier. But it still was a long time. So I feel like, because there have been so much death, there's so much grief. Like, it just feels like the whole world is like blanketed with grief, and people don't actually know how to process this, because people, I think sometimes people are looking for someone to blame for the grief. And it doesn't matter who you try to blame for it. You need to find a way to heal from it. That's the only way you're going to be able to overcome.
And that's how I feel right now. I just want to heal. I don't want to blame. At this point, it ain't going to do me no, because then that's just going to be somebody else for me to be mad and bitter with. I'm good on that. And I don't have time for that displaced anger either. Because a lot of times you're blaming people for what you didn't do yourself.
Right. So as far as like getting back on a schedule, I definitely, I want us to get back to that.
But let's kind of
get that content on a regular basis. But as we continue to process through this stuff, like these next 2 weeks for me are going to be extremely busy with, until after the funeral. And then I could like try to get, Inspiring Beauty is not even on a schedule right now, because I'm just like, I'll just make a video.
Yeah, and at this moment, the only reason why Whole Story Sundays is on the schedule is because I had already had the season planned out prior to my dad's passing. Honestly, I had told Chantel that she was going to be on the Whole Story Sundays probably way long ago. But right now, I think we're going to play it by ear. Bear with us, because we are still very busy women too. Both of us are still, as Shani works, I work. Shani is a mother. I'm not a mom, but I am a family woman. I don't have a man though, but I am a family woman. Yeah, we busy. We both content creators, and so just bear with us. And do you have anything else you want to say as we close?
Y'all could always go back and watch old content if you need to get a feel on that. Like, listen. Go back and watch the old stuff. Go to the Whole Story Sundays podcast and listen to all the back messages. I'm sure it can help you. They say faith comes by hearing and hearing, so that means you need to
word of God.
Hear it.
Yep. So
that you didn't get the first time. Go to
the first time. Yep.
Watch the old videos and stuff.
Inspiring Beauty and Believers and binge watch, and then go to mall. Come to Matters of the Heart, and then listen. We was very consistent with y'all, so y'all know it's not intentional. It's just life. And the good news is that we're going to still be consistent once we get a flow. So we'll bring y'all
even better than it was before.
It is, because I think season 2 we're going to go a different route. but we got to come together and figure out which route that is. So we're going to talk about that off topic, off record. Okay.
Yes.
All right, y'all. So it was great to see you guys again for another Heart, Matter, and Feeling episode of Matters of the Heart Mondays, even though we recorded on a Saturday, but it don't matter because y'all gonna get it on a Monday.
Exactly. This will be posted for you on Monday.
So I enjoyed collaborating with my beautiful co-host Chantel. I had not worked with her in over 2 months, I think. So this was very good for the soul. So all right.
All right. I love you. I love you. And I love you guys. And
love y'all all. And we're gonna keep y'all in y'all prayers and y'all pray for us. Bye, y'all.
Bye.